we don't think enough about first impression with our employees, right? We have a lot of seasonal hotels. A lot of people are traveling to get to us to work in the season. And the first impression we make with them, is everything to their behavior and their attitudes. It's our first date with them, right? And it's important to win them over. So if you want them to smile and you want them to have the right behavior, day one, day two, you got to get off to a good start with them.
Welcome back to the Future of Hospitality. I'm your co-host Gabi, and today I'm joined by Billy, CEO of Beaumier Hotels. Hotels that are known for their character, calm design, and real human service across the Alps, the province, and the Mediterranean. He believes that the best hotels are places where it's easy for employees to smile and guests feel at home. Welcome, Billy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here because I know you are really, really big on culture and especially also culture for your employees, like empowering them and letting them be themselves. If you could have to kill one script at a check-in tomorrow, for example, what would it be and what would replace it?
Well, you started with a pretty pet peeve of mine in the hospitality industry. I think scripted check-ins are something of the past, and the need to react to a client's need when you first meet and greet them for the first time is just so important. So I'm giving you a very long-winded answer to a short question, but I think it's just critical to be able to tailor-make a check-in experience to what a guest wants, whether they want to do it online before they arrive, which we're implementing in all our hotels, whether they want to sit down and, have a glass of something and really get the lowdown of everything they can do around us and everything in between, right? And just being able to allow people to kind of walk through the door of our establishments with comfort and with their dictating how they want us to be assisting them from the time we spend time with them.
Yeah, I love that because you're, like I said, both big on consumer brand, but also like employees. If you what is the one guest moment in Beaumier where you don't refuse to compromise on? What is like really important for your guests and you will never compromise on any way or anyhow?
Yeah, I think the one thing we'll never compromise is creating an environment where people can create their own experience, right? And that takes, it sounds easy, but it's not so easy to do, right? And what we'll never compromise on is purposely not provide these prescribed experiences and giving people kind of this environment where they can feel comfortable and decide how they want to interact with our hotels, with our staff, and with our amenities.
Yeah, would you say that like the freedom for the guests is like really important, like how they are in the hotels, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, listen, clearly, once you decide to stay at one of our hotels, you're already choosing a certain type of environment that you want to be part of. But part of that environment is, while we try to create little moments that are fun and special for our guests and, a lot of things around food and beverage or wellness, at the end of the day, we really want the guests to feel that freedom to experience the hotel the way they want to, and whether they're there by themselves, as a couple, as a young family, as a gathering of people celebrating something, to just give them hopefully a great backdrop to create memorable experiences.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the listeners that are listening right now are also already captivated like about the story that you're telling. We often also do like a fun break and quick fire where we ask quick questions and then get some quick answers just to get you, Billy, and more. Are you ready for that, for the quick fire?
Let's do it.
Yeah? Okay, if you need to choose, Alps or Mediterranean?
Well, I just moved next to Aix-en-Provence, so I could be 30 minutes from the Mediterranean and an hour and a half from the Alps. So I'm not picking. I want to be able to do both.
Okay. What's the most underrated destination in your portfolio right now?
Well, we just opened recently in Switzerland in Wengen, which is probably not as well known of a destination as some of others in our portfolio, and I have to say the nature there is just breathtaking. It's absolutely breathtaking. So for anybody who's never been in Vengam, I really invite you to come and visit.
Yeah. Okay. What's the biggest waste of money in hotel design? I'm curious.
Technology in hotel rooms. It ages
Hmm.
very quickly, and nobody wants to learn how to use anything while they stay with you.
True, true. And how would you describe understated luxury in one word?
That's a tough one. I'd say just relax. It's just got to feel natural and relaxed.
Relax, yeah. Yeah, or we already had maybe an amenity you can delete tomorrow because it's probably technology in the room, right?
I'm sorry, repeat what you just said.
An amenity you can delete tomorrow, but it should be probably the tech.
Um, an amenity in a room. The one thing that and this is going back to a dear friend of mine, Michael Levy, in the industry, who talks about this a lot. But the chocolate on the pillow is something that I've never quite gotten, and even though that's a pretty tiny amenity, I just don't get it.
Okay, so we no chocolates anymore and no tech in the room anymore.
Well, you can
Okay, the
have
last.
tech, just, this idea that you can introduce like fancy technology. People want things that are intuitive, easy to use in a hotel. They're not looking to learn how to become tech geeks while they're staying with us.
True, that's so true. So for guests and for the world out there, one word for Beaumier's vibe:
Chill.
chill. So everything is just relaxing. You are at home. You're just chilling, and I think that's also really in what you're saying. You often say like we don't need to force our guests, but we need to give more freedom. How would you say the moment you knew guest-led design works? Like what clicked for you if you know like okay, we want to design an hotel based on what the guests also really want.
Yeah, I mean, I think what tends to go wrong in design-led hotels is people thinking about how something looks, and how something looks is important and very relevant. But the eyes is only one sense, right? And it's how something feel that's important, right? So it's how it all comes together, and paying attention to all the senses, uh, to ensure that, again, right, you're just creating an environment that feels aspirational, that just feels good, and that allows you to hopefully be kind of the best version of yourself, or whatever version of yourself you want to be while traveling.
Yeah. Yeah, and how do because you're saying okay, there are multiple senses in a way. What how would you describe like the art of genuine hospitality within Palmier? How would you describe that?
It's really about creating an environment that feels very natural. It starts with our employees, right? We want them to be themselves. We want them to be empowered, and just being part of something that's not forced, that's not contrived. That respect and incorporates it in environment, right? Our hotels are not just our hotels; they're always part of beautiful surroundings, and again, kind of not trying to compete with that, but trying to kind of blend and allow that to also play a big part of who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know you're not a really big fan of scripting and everything, but how do you like keep the efficiency but also like the freedom that you're telling? Because some things, should it be also always that freedom, or is structure also sometimes important?
No, that's a really good question, right? And we're constantly challenging ourselves on what kind of that right balance is, of making sure that people are trained properly, and that there is a certain level of structure to the way that we operate, but yet that it doesn't feel forced and contrived. And it's an art, not a science. We don't always get it right, but we try our hardest to. And something we really think about a lot, right, is always kind of reassessing, do we have that balance right in our hotels?
Yeah, yeah, I love that you're saying it's not a science but an art. Because the thing that I also really love about the branding and the hotels is that it's simple but it's luxurious, and I really liked it. How did you realize that simplicity could also be like a huge advantage in luxury?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think that's an original thought, right? If you look at the world today, everybody is looking to simplify their lives one way or the other, right? So, that we are so overly stimulated in our lives that, having the privilege to, you know, have hotels, create hotels, reposition hotels in these beautiful environments and not trying too hard and letting it be stripped back and simple is actually not an easy thing to do, right? I always say in design, it's always harder to take something away than to add one thing. Um, but it's at the end of the day, we believe very in touch with the way people want to travel and live their lives today.
Yeah, yeah. And you did already like a lot of openings, etc. And I'm really curious, like, what was like one thing that you kept away from the design, or did, for example, less, and that created like more magic for the guests? Is there something memorable in something you took away but created so much space?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Beaumier has done really well over the years in the development of their properties is that confidence of repetition of materials and not overstimulating by, our hotel rooms never have like, wood, marble, tile, and all these things and 12 colors, and 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 I think over the years that's something repeatedly, even though you've asked me to kind of point something out, but I think repeatedly without probably trying too hard and credit, to many people who have been involved in our project and in kind of having that discipline and confidence of repetition of materials and not doing too much in any given space.
Yeah, and then of course the design is really important. But like I said, I know you guys are also like big on employee branding and the culture within. And I think that's also right. The face of a brand is the people that are working there. What would like be the quickest staff experience tweak that makes it easy for employees to smile? Like inserting something in their routine that makes the employees happy to serve, because that's, yeah, also really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are three components to this, right? One is you should never lose the opportunity and take really every opportunity to remind our employees that at the end of the day, they're the most important people in our hotels. So that's one. The second thing is, you know, first impressions are, people talk about first impression with guests, right? Like the first question you asked me was about check-in, right? Uh, but we don't think enough about first impression with our employees, right? We have a lot of seasonal hotels. A lot of people are traveling to get to us to work in the season, and the first impression we make with them, is everything to their behavior and their attitudes. It's our first date with them, right? And it's important to win them over. So if you want them to smile and you want them to have the right behavior, day one, day two, you got to get off to a good start with them. And the last thing is, kind of going full circle back to my first point, right? Not only for them to understand that they're the most important people in our buildings, but also for them to feel appreciated and never lose an opportunity to say thank you, to say well done, to give constructive criticism when is needed, but to really have that ongoing communication that allows for a good, healthy, and thriving relationship.
Yeah, I love that, right? Because if you invest in them, you eventually also invest in the experience that our guests are having in that way. How do you also train them, for example, to ask better questions and get more that one-on-one relationship with the guests?
It's actually something we want to get better at. We're developing new training programs for when we are taking in kind of the new class of people in our seasonal hotels. Even though obviously we have a lot of employees that follow us from one hotel to the other. So we're developing new modules, both physical and online. We are just realizing how much training is a pyramid down. So it's not, a lot of the time we think about the training of kind of the bulk of the employees, but also investing a lot more time in department heads and empowering them to train their staff more and giving them more time to do that also around the opening of our hotels. So even though it's something that I think we've done pretty well so far, I think it's something we recognize as a business that we need to do better. So we're actually putting a lot of time, energy, money, and efforts in with the upcoming season in bettering ourselves, and hopefully that will allow our staff to feel that much well received, that much more prepared pre-opening, and thrive and have that much of a better time working the season with us.
Yeah, so we already have like two of the three components that I think are really well done by Beaumier, because we have the guest experience, like the relaxed, the luxury, but simple. We have the employees, but one thing that I also really, really love is like the sense of place that you're creating with the heritage of often different places. How do you balance like the soul, the history with the modern and classic when you open new hotels, or yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing you have to do is ensure you. Let me just backtrack a second. Every property that we've purchased through the life cycle of Beaumier has had a lot of DNA, a lot of character, a lot of soul, and a lot of history. The first thing we need to do is hang on to that very tightly, right? You know, we're writing the next chapter of these hotels, right? So, and there's been chapters before us. So holding on really tight to, you know, the history of the surroundings and the history of those buildings and what was there once upon a time, I think is very important. I think once you do that well, writing that next chapter becomes easier. And you know, it's a gift to be able to work on hotels in such incredible surroundings, right? The storytelling just writes itself, right? And it's so, you know, if we're allowed to curse a little, I would say our biggest job is to not fuck it up. You know, once
Nice.
we get our hands on these beautiful hotels.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you can curse if you want, because I'm also like really curious when you're looking at those hotels, how do you know it's authentic enough that those chapters before are authentic, and that you guys know, okay, if we give the Beaumier vibe on it, stamp on it, it will be the next chapter. How do you feel that feeling?
Yeah, you know, the word authentic is one that I struggle with a little bit in our space. I feel like so many people have said, this is authentic, authentic. You know, the words unique and authentic are used and overused in our industry. You know, listen, storytelling is storytelling, right? It's luckily we are in areas of the world and with properties that have such strong DNA again that we do know that it is authentic, to use your word. But you know, it's about not taking these. You know, you want to hold true to these stories, but it's the lore of what was there before and what will be there after us. And you know, sometimes it's a little bit embellished. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a left or right turn. That's perfectly okay as well. That's part of the charm of getting to work on hotels that get to tell such beautiful stories around them.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And you're big on storytelling, and it is important. But how do you get it consistent across, like when you open, when it's low season, but also when it's peak season? How do you keep that storytelling consistent to your guests? And
Yeah, I mean,
well,
so let me just say the start of good storytelling is working with very talented people with you, and Beaumier has luckily surrounded themselves by extraordinary talent that have helped us kind of develop these stories and these hotels. You know, as far as how they live in our hotels, again, I kind of go back to what we were talking about. It's kind of that finding that right balance between telling the stories and just let the lore of their stories just be part of who we are. You know, we stop being ourselves is as soon as people walk through the door, we just tell them every story that has happened in the buildings and the surroundings, right? It's kind of counter to what we've been talking about for the last 15, 20 minutes. But it equally is fun once in a while to tell something cool about the building or the surroundings, right? And it's about first making sure that that knowledge gets passed on and translated to our staff and our ecosystem. And again, finding that right balance between these stories just living within the walls of the buildings and being told, whether it's through the digital world or the physical world with our staff.
Yeah, no, and I'm curious because we're talking about it, right? But it would be also interesting to see how you did it more practical. For example, with the hotel in Wengen, how did you preserve the history when you were opening that, but also reduce like operational friction?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by operational friction.
So, so it is a quite like how do you keep it simple but luxurious? Like we talked about. Like I'm curious how you did it, particularly for example for this hotel.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Vangam is a destination that's over 100 years old, and the ski shop that we use, for example, for all our guests, right? They're the fourth generation in the ski shop, right? And there's a lot of stories like this, right? So yeah, so how do the young new brand from France go to Switzerland and make sure that we're paying homage and being respectful to the environment, and that it lives very well in kind of the opening. And first of all, you do it by doing a lot of listening at the start and doing a lot of learning about the destination. That's where it all starts. Then you make sure that when you're repositioning the property, that you are again taking that DNA, that soul, those stories with you. And then, going now to your question, once you have the hotel open, you just got to do what it takes to make sure that that stays alive in the hotel, and that you're also, while that stays alive, not afraid of writing also new stories as part of the property. You know, it, it's not that hard. It's not easy. But part of the key is to not try too hard, right? And and actually not to try too hard. You have to work incredibly hard, right? Because that's where the confidence comes in. That's where the training comes in. That's where, having the confidence to, you know, share what feels you need to be shared, and again, let some of those stories live through the walls of the hotel.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. And to be honest, like really personal. When I look at your brand and I look at those hotels, I'm like, oh, I want to be a part of that. It's so you feel the freedom, you feel the storytelling, even though even if you're not in the destination, you feel it breathing from through the website to everything. Is community also something that's big for you? Like having kind of your guests feel part of being a community?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't do what we do without creating a community at every hotel, right? And we work with as many local suppliers as we can, especially through our food and beverage. We hire as local as we can, even though that's not always as easy as we would like it to be, given the lack of population around some of our hotels. And the people that work with us in developing those stories and developing these hotels, we tend to repeat and keep working with them, so they're part of what we call our collective, right? And our community, and none of what we do is possible without that. So our community has no boundaries, right? But it involves, it starts with Beaumier employees, but then it goes with, the consultant, the designers, the creatives that are around us. It goes to the local community that we try. The biggest compliment is for the local community to endorse us and to be proud of what we've created. And we work incredibly hard to earn that respect whenever we
Yeah.
go into a new market.
Yeah, I love that. I really think that that's also the way to go in that sense. I'm also curious because I know you are often on the property, like you spend time in the hotels. Why do you do that? I'm curious about why dropping in.
First of all, very selfishly, because I love it. The energy in our hotels, I just feed off of it, and it just inspires me to see our hotels in action, even when our hotels are not open and there's a different type of action in typically making them a little bit better and so forth, right? I just, for me, it's where all my creative energy comes from. It's where all my inspiration is being surrounded by the people that are making it happen in our hotels. After that, I feel to contribute successfully in my role in the business, that to stay as close to the business as possible is the best way I can get really good feedback, the best way I can interact with as many people as possible in the business, and therefore, allow me to make sure that we're focusing on the right things, and allowing it to drive some of the strategic vision of the group. So it's I wouldn't know any other way.
Yeah, I love that because eventually it comes back to that internal employee branding, right? So being there, showing them that they are empowered, that they can be themselves, and then that's the foundation of bringing that great experience, that great guest experience from the ground or from the employee seats up, if I'm hearing
Yeah,
correctly.
I just need to make sure I don't overstay my welcome. So I try not to stay in our hotels for too long. People need to understand our general managers, they're the people in charge of our hotels. And while everybody typically welcomes me with open arms, and again, I just so fun and exciting to be in our hotels at any given time. I know that there are time for me to leave and let them get on without me at property level as well.
Yeah, but on the other side, it's also really cool, like you said, to see the hotels in real life action and then stay there. But yeah, you also need to let them do their work. So we are called, of course, the future of hospitality, and that always brings us to the last question, being about the future. And I know, or I'm hearing that you really see like that the future of hospitality will be people powered, so by the employees, but also about the guests. And what are like in 5 years? What will be like the most human moment of a guest stay? Will that be everything, or yeah? How do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Our business, just like many other industries, right, is kind of in this intersection of how do you keep human contact and how do you introduce more technology to be more efficient in your hotels, right? And AI is the biggest topic on the planet right now, but even new kind of software that's being developed for the hotel space. Where do I see the crystal ball in 5 years? I again, I'm going to give you a long-winded answer, but for me, first of all, I see a very bright future for our industry, right? If you ask every single person, the number one thing they want to do with disposable income is travel, right? So I'm incredibly bullish for our industry and our space moving forward, because at the end of the day, people want to travel, they want to discover the world, they want to feel connected to nature and discover these amazing cities around the world. And the only way to do that is to travel. In 5 years' time, I think technology will play a bigger part in our industry. But equally, I think people will also play a bigger part in our industry.
Yeah. I love that. So, okay, that's a new one that I heard, but I love that answer because people are important, which I really learned also from this conversation. Not only your guests, but also your employees. They are like the fundament of having that good storytelling. Billy, I really want to thank you for your time and showing us yeah how you can really make luxury simple, but also focus on your employees and provide a great experience for your guests. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for your great question and your time, and appreciate it.
Thank you. And for the listeners, I want to invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, on Spotify or YouTube, and like and subscribe. And I will see you to the next one.